From the death by bloat episode that had all of us green in the gills, to the worst depiction of a hangman in A Monster Among Us, here are 10 episodes from Yellowstone that definitely needed a warning. And I'll start with the infamous cattle deaths in Only Devils Left, which really had me rethinking life on a ranch, because if that's what it's like, I'd like to stay in my neat and clean city, thank you very much. You've already guessed what gave me the ick from the episode, right? It was all the cows that were killed unnecessarily just to send a message. I mean, I get that humans can be a disagreeable lot, especially the Duttons, because, you know, those guys are pretty strict when it comes to their ranch and principles. But did the cows really have to suffer? Even an old-fashioned duel would have worked fine for the situation, no? But I guess when you have to send a statement, you can't help but go big, even if it means poisoning hundreds of cows just because you got up and felt petty that day. But even if that had to happen, a show of warning could have worked for us non-cowboys who don't know that way of life. In fact, the show could have followed this back from episode 1. Y'all remember Daybreak, right? This iconic episode didn't just introduce the Duttons to us, but also their very weird way of marking their territory. The Y brand. I knew I'd catch you with that reminder. I mean, I've never been a fan of branding as such. Actually, to be fair, who is? Definitely not Jimmy, at least. But sadly, the dude gets the worst of the Duttons on the first day of the show, when he's offered 2 ways to go about life: in prison or as a branded employee on the Dutton Ranch. He definitely didn't choose the latter, but he got the brand on him anyway, which was painful to watch because, well, I don't think I need to go into the details of why. Still, guys, a warning next time maybe. Who am I kidding though? Where there's a rip, the show always finds extra reasons to turn violent. Take The Unraveling Part 1 as an example. This episode's disturbing, and not just for one particular reason. Just the opening scene itself is full of gore, with Rip walking in on his brother's dead body as his mother was murdered in the other room. If there was ever a time for a bad knock-knock joke, this is it. Anyway, not to make light of such a serious situation, this episode really checked all of the boxes for being heartbreaking, sad, shocking, and of course, disturbing to the max. Oh, and when we all realized this was Rip, and not just a rando out on the ranch, well, let's just say that was when I realized the show really needs to give us a warning for when we need a bucket load of tissues to watch an episode. And the same thing happened on Resurrection Day. Now look, it's not like I haven't seen my fair share of sudden deaths in pop culture. Hello, Red Wedding? But when it comes to ending seasons with a bang, Yellowstone literally has that one figured out, especially the Beck brothers, who were also the killers of the cows now that I remember. But anyway, here I'm talking about the death of poor Jason, who definitely went through the motions of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. The Salt Lake City lad didn't even know what to wear in the Montana cold, and before he could even figure that out, he was killed in cold blood. No pun intended. Beth's facial scars were harrowing enough, but who can forget her hapless assistant, who didn't even have anything to do with the Duttons? Oh, and on that note, let's also talk about The World is Purple. Now, this episode was just an unlucky turn of events. Plus, at this point, shouldn't the Duttons just hire bodyguards to prevent the Becks from being, well, the Becks? Or the least the show could do was add a warning before each Beck episode. Because man, are these guys violent or what? In this episode, the ultimate moment of shock comes when, surprise, surprise, Beth's assistant, yep, another one, opens up a box addressed to her name. And you guys remember how I said the show loves to end things up with a bang, right? Honestly, this should be a clear rule of thumb. Never open unknown boxes addressed to your bosses if you don't know where they're from, or when your boss is named Beth. Man, do her assistants have a short shelf life or what? Anyway, the box opening caused everything to go haywire, with a lot of innocent people getting shot, which sucked. And even though I loved watching it all, I'd say the show could really use some warning labels to keep us aware of the shock coming up. Like, did you guys know that people have actually stopped watching the show just because of that episode? So yeah, I'm not kidding when I say these things need prior warnings. And then there's the Season 2 premiere episode, A Thundering. Now look, Rip may have had a hard upbringing, but did he have to be so violent in the show? For me, one of the worst episodes where he lets his rage loose is this one, where he attacks a bar where Avery, Jimmy, and some other Yellowstone guys get into a brawl. It was a brawl, dude. Something all cowboy movies are known for. But it wasn't just a simple fight for this dude. Not only did he let a bull loose in the bar, but when the aggressors ran out to save their lives, he gave them a beating so bad even Walker refused to participate. Yeah, good idea, dude. Just give us a heads up before you get into something this violent, yeah? Speaking of heads, well, remember that part in I Killed a Man Today, where Monica is attacked by an unknown dude? See, this is normal Yellowstone. A sudden burst of violence, a tackled fight in the middle of nowhere, that's all fine. But when the fight's supposed to end with a guy getting shot through the head, that's when the need for a warning comes in. Because neither Monica nor we signed up to watch all that gore sprout out of the guy's head. So seeing that was enlightening to say the least, in the way that I actually found out about another puke trigger during this day, watching a guy be killed with a headshot. But hey, Yellowstone isn't just known for its violent moments. There were some other episodes too where the ick factor made me want to turn the show off and never watch it again. But I'm too big a fan to do that. Although Winning or Learning almost had me on the fence. It was that creepy. Not the entire episode though, no. It was just actually one particular scene from it that had all the fans reeling. I know you haven't forgotten it, but let's recap anyway. Remember that time when Tate was taking a bath and Monica was standing there with a towel? Remember how Tate told her to look away because it's stiff as a board, he said? Well, first off, it's not like none of us are strangers to what he means. And secondly, why did Monica have to be standing there? Why? Your kid's a teenager, woman. Give him some privacy. Honestly, the creep factor was super high in this one. And it definitely needed a warning of the it's gonna make your skin crawl variety. Because it did. It definitely did. Another honorable mention here is when Rip digs up his mom. Now, that I can try to understand. Unresolved trauma and unforgettable childhood memories. But neither I nor the rest of the show's fans signed up to have Rip's dead mom be a part of our core memories. Really, why did we have to watch it without prior knowledge of what was about to happen? I know that at this point we're all pretty desensitized to Yellowstone being violent and unexpected, but trust me, it took a lot of crazy episodes to reach this stage. Like in I Want to Be Him, where Rip, who's probably a regular in Yellowstone's Hall of Violent Fame, attempted the worst of his beatings that I've seen on the show. I have to say, it wasn't entirely his fault this time. It was actually Lloyd who started it by stabbing Walker in the chest. And even then, Rip wants to give him a second chance. But John Dutton didn't want any of that. So after he tells them to settle this in a public fight, well, we get to see one of the worst action sequences of all time. Not that it was badly shot, but because it followed Rip literally ripping into Lloyd. He even went so far as to smash his hand with his boot. Ugh, right? But was this as bad as A Monster Among Us, where we don't just see two stranded tourists die, but also a poor bear? Now, I know Rip's life was more important in this scenario, but it was so sad to see all three deaths happen one after the other. And I honestly felt really bad for the couple. These two had literally just come out to take a stroll in the wilderness. But sadly, this is Yellowstone. And if an episode doesn't end in death or violence, it really is a sign of something worse about to happen soon. And that it was. From the stranded couple's death in A Monster Among Us to Rip branding Jimmy in the series premiere, this was all the episodes in Yellowstone that really needed a warning.